No.
Listen, FBI monitoring.
We haven't bought our podcast insurance yet. please stop. Okay, welcome to Barnstorming. My name is Taylor Lightman. This is our pre-primary pod. I used to do political campaigns professionally, and I just graduated with a master's in disaster from Leeds University. And it's a pleasure to be here, as always, with my co-producer and friend, Jordy Comas.
Hey, everybody, this is Jordy. Also thrilled to be here. I, for the first time in maybe 4 years, cracked open my PhD dissertation to find a quote, which I was sure was in there and wasn't. So that's like a very annoying experience. But as always, this is always a good time to be here. We've got a lot of great content out there now, several interviews with different people running in local races. And even if it seems hyper local to you, I think, anybody knows that, like, broadly, the progressive movement and forces for change, like, we need to all have some love for everything up and down the ballot. So make some time. Yeah. And one of the ones go ahead.
Cross municipal solidarity.
That's right. Speaking of which, one of them is an interview with Gopal, Divine, and Rich. Yeah. And I really, it's honestly, Nick, I'm not just saying this, it was one of my favorites. They had such a great, I'm going to throw it to Nick, let him talk about them. Go ahead, Nick.
Hold on, I want to fix my background so you can actually see what I'm holding here. Here we go. Divine, Rich, and Gopal. So these are, honestly, I haven't really been involved in local borough council races in State College and Center County as much as I probably should have been over the last several years. But Divine, Rich, and Gopal represent an opportunity for us to really get representation on the State College Borough Council. Things people don't know about State College, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast. We've got a 40% poverty rate in the borough. 40%. Now that's including Penn State students who may be covered under their parents' income. But if you remove Penn State students, you're still looking at a poverty rate that is higher than the national average, higher than the state average, and higher than our locality right next door. And yet, State College Borough Council considers this to be one of the up and coming and highly affluent areas in Pennsylvania. Simply not the case. Our State College Borough Council right now has an average age of 80, and they're all rich white folks.
You're not just saying that.
I'm not just saying that.
80.
We literally have an average age of 80 years old.
Look, if Biden walks into a room and lowers the average age, that is too old.
Yeah. Amen.
I just want to say also, I mean, it's such a dream ticket. Divine is like just amazingly calm and wise, works in restorative justice, I think. Is that right? Or with incarcerated populations.
Yes, Divine is formerly incarcerated. He's a reformed gang member who is now working with people in reentry and helping make sure that folks are able to avoid going into the criminal justice system in the first place.
Rich is an artist and a business owner. Gopal is a public defender and teaches law. It is such a dream ticket. It's great to see.
And just to plug the other podcast, and then we'll give Nick a proper intro here. I hosted a debate with the two candidates for mayor of Lewisburg. We have a Democratic primary, and it was a quote unquote debate. It was a really nice conversation, and I love the League of Women Voters, but sometimes their forums are just so dry, and I feel like you really got their personality with this, which is what you're looking for in deciding who you want to be the mayor. So that's good, and so. We have 3 returning champions on. It's a dream pod. Since you've already heard from him, Nick Presley, welcome back.
Hello. Yes. Well, thanks for having me again. My name is Nick Presley. I'm formerly incarcerated activist myself, currently the interim director of campaigns for the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, focusing on the We the People campaign, which aims to address some of the deepest inequities that we're dealing with in our system here in Pennsylvania, specifically around allocation of budget funds. And today we're working on making sure that folks know that Pennsylvania faces a choice with what to do with the American Rescue Plan. But yes, pleasure to be here. And as always, thank you. You're going to see me. This is my opportunity to kind of like relax a little bit. And so I am going to hit my nicotine vape pen a couple times. And just because this is in lieu of me smoking cigarettes, this is better.
Keeping it real.
All good. Not only that, Nick, have you ever heard? There are variations in this, but I know that Ayanna Pressley has policy is my love language, which is a great. I feel like a lot of the We the People is the numbers and charts for that sentiment. Ask me about legislative. There we go. Nice. Nick, as always, the classic joke that we all make in podcasting is it's an auditory medium and we make visual jokes. Nick put on his "Ask me about my legislative agenda" mask. Okay.
That.
Well, Jess,
how do I get one?
Tell us about yourself.
Right in.
No, go ahead, Jess. You're up. Tell us about yourself.
I'm Jess Britton. I'm at the moment overwhelmed with jealousy, honestly, because of the mask that Nick has that says "Ask me about my legislative agenda." We'll talk offline, Nick, about what I need to do to get one of those. That's amazing. Returning champion, I guess. Taylor never gave me a title like I asked him to, but it's fine. I'm not mad or upset. I just cry myself to sleep at night, but it's okay. So Jess Britton, president of Action Together NEPA, hub facilitator. I do some other stuff.
How about Jess busted
no, Britain. I don't like that one. We're not going with that one.
Jess Big Side Britain, no.
Yeah, no. You know what? I'm gonna make up my own. You guys are bad at this.
How about Eye of the Storm? Jess Eye of the Storm Britain.
That's a terrible title. I don't want that title. Calm. No, we're not. Right, you guys are fired.
I give up.
Yeah, but yeah. So I'm excited to be here today and to talk about the primary. And newsflash: there are 2 elections every single year. So it's important to know all of that. And talk about some local races, and I'm just pumped to do that. So
yeah,
here I am.
It's a pleasure to have you on as always. And last but certainly not least, you know him, you love him, Dwayne Heisler.
Wow, that's quite an introduction, Taylor. And you know what? You got your degree in disasters just in time too, so congratulations on that.
Business is booming.
Business is good. It really is. Like, could you ever have a more timely degree than disasters in this?
Well, it's disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. So
oh my gosh, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, you'd think I'd be able to find a job, but
and a minor in all the things, right? All the things. So I'm happy to be here. It's so good to be with everyone. So I'm the chair of the Progressive Caucus for the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm also, my day job is with SEIU Healthcare, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the primary that's coming up next week.
Yeah. Should we just go right into headlines, or does anybody have any sort of petitions that they want people to sign or action items to just get out of the way first?
Well, actually, everything for We the People we should drop in the show notes. Okay. There's things coming up. We'll always do that. But are there other things?
I'll do one. Yeah, so for Action Together NEPA, we're collecting personal stories from people all throughout the region. What does Build Back Better mean to you? What does the recovery mean to you? What does it mean for your community and this region that we all live in and share? So yeah, if anyone is interested in sharing their story, we need as many as we can possibly get. So find us at actiontogethernepa.org and send us a message and we'll get in touch.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
I just remembered another one too, which is if you are anywhere near a Dropbox in any county and hearing us, a ballot Dropbox, take a picture dropping your ballot, just go by it, take a picture hugging it. You Dropbox picture, send it to us, and there are people who are really trying to elevate how completely, utterly innocuous and uncontroversial these are. This is the thing that we do out here in rural areas. Honestly, I don't give a shit if it helps, the other side. It just helps people vote. It's helpful for people in rural areas. Some of these counties, like Homing County is huge, just to throw that out there. So is Center County. Center County is huge geographically. So
yeah, we're one of the biggest counties in the state. I'm going to share a link in the chat here, and I'm assuming it'll end up on the show notes. But Thursday evening at 7 p.m., there is a webinar. I'm sharing the Facebook invite link in the chat. A webinar to talk about that very issue. you know, how innocuous drop boxes are, how they're actually safe, they're actually secure, and a lot of people use them. So your pictures of you using the Dropbox will go to help show our legislators that they, in fact, need to continue this practice instead of making it harder for people to vote.
We should come up with a hashtag on the pod. Something about dropping, don't drop the box or something. Don't drop the, I don't know. Okay.
There are very few documentaries about sausage making for a reason.
Okay. All right.
Everyone that I came up with was inappropriate, so we're not going to use them.
I want to hear what those are sometimes.
Sorry, I'll put them in the chat.
Okay.
Don't screw the Dropbox. No.
All right. Should we move on to headlines then? Anybody wants to go first?
One tiny thing about our podcast also, I just want to point out that in the Lewisburg mayoral Democratic primary, we're either going to end up with an immigrant woman of color Democratic candidate who's almost sure going to win, or a Hispanic Muslim. So, you know, it's like to me, it's like some version of the 80s Ain't in America for You and Me, you know. So just that's a sort of sub headline that is cool.
Yeah. It is cool. It was a good interview. We talked about housing policy and biking and pedestrian safety, and we played 2 games, and it was really fun. All right, Dwayne, you want to kick us off here with a headline?
Sure, I have one and just kind of hinted about it, but it's amazing to me how many people, when we're engaging with them, say, oh, is there an election this year? And what's really amazing is that, and this is the headline, Pennsylvania elections every 6 months.
Yeah.
And people don't think about it like that, right? And maybe the tagline is, in this one in particular, like, every voter can vote this time.
And that's critical.
That is critical.
Not enough people know that.
And so we really need to kind of dig in on that. So it's a headline for a lot of people in the state that we vote every 6 months, and that when there is a ballot question, you are able to vote regardless of your party, as long as you're registered to vote. And that's a really important message to get out there, because a lot of people are not exercising the voice that they have. And this one is talking about our Constitution. So really important.
Am I typing really loud? I want to add to that, Dwayne, just real quick, that also in a conversation I have every 6 months in Pennsylvania is that people with felonies in Pennsylvania can vote.
Yes.
You know, I have a felony. I voted every election since 2012, I think. And you know, I have this conversation twice a year, every year. There's an election every 6 months in Pennsylvania, and if you have a felony, you can vote. Please vote.
I can't tell you, just even it hasn't come up this year, which is sad because people don't know that there's an election. But just in doing, you know, 2020 get out the vote, how many times we were asked that question, and people did not know. And it just like that, just it's so sad and frustrating because you don't know what your rights are, and that's really scary. So thanks for highlighting that, Nick. That's so important.
That'd be a good t-shirt.
Next headline is somebody. Do we pick somebody? Oh, Nick, go ahead, Nick.
Sure. And I kind of touched on this at a couple of different meetings earlier today, but Pennsylvania lawmaker says the quiet part out loud. Carrie Benninghoff, who is next door. I'm actually looking at his district out my back window. And basically he had a quote in an article recently, and I'm going to, oh no, I opened up a different thing, and I'm going to read it real quick. But this is a situation where we basically have a lot of money coming in from the American Rescue Plan and from the federal government. We've got a once in a generation opportunity to really, you know, use that money to help address some of the issues that the pandemic exposed. Pennsylvania is a very unequal state in a lot of ways, and this is very clear to us now. The problem is that our legislators, including Carrie, want to use this extra money. We're looking at $8.3+ billion, so more than $8.3 billion, to not only address the losses that we've experienced during the pandemic to our economy, but to close what's called structural deficits. So basically, what a structural deficit is, and I'll try to really simplify this, is when we gave tax cuts to a lot of folks, and a lot of corporations don't pay taxes in Pennsylvania, and yet we still need the same services. So as of several years ago, for almost a decade now, we've had a big gap between the amount of money we need to spend on the services Pennsylvania needs and the amount of money that's coming into the Pennsylvania government. That gap is not closing because they've never put in a mechanism for replacing the funding that's lost through not taxing those folks. They want to use this one-time money that's only going to last for 2 years in an effort to close this continual deficit that we seem to have, when in reality, it's a short-term solution. Kerry Benninghoff says it's short-sighted to use this money to address these inequities instead. He said the quiet part out loud. He said, I can't speak for all the leaders, but I think there's a common interest in trying to make sure we're looking at our continual deficit. I'm paraphrasing this, trying to balance that out for this year and next year and utilizing those dollars to do that. I think we do not want to be short-sighted and think we can go on to a spending spree, because frankly, we still have the deficits to be taken care of. The relief money is to address those. The fact is that it is short-sighted to use this money on our deficit, because the money's going to run out in 2 years and we'll be right back to where we are today and where we are before the pandemic hit, which was still a place of unequal budgeting and resource allocation in this state.
Nick, this sort of seems to me like using the money to plug the structural deficit. It's sort of like, your dog came into my yard and shat a huge pile of stinking shit. And then my fairy godmother delivered a wedding dress. And I'm like, I know what I'll do. I'm going to take the dress and go pick up the dog shit. Where the dog is the corporate loopholes, the shit is the deficit, the house is Pennsylvania, and the dress is the rescue money. Taylor, you're
and the fence is the Delaware loophole with like a big hole in it, like dog-sized hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get that on a mask?
The Delaware loophole, for those folks who don't know, is the loophole in our tax structure, corporate tax structure, that allows corporations to incorporate out of Delaware and still operate in Pennsylvania without paying any taxes. In fact, 70% of corporations in Pennsylvania do not pay taxes, and yet we want to use this money that's supposed to be for our recovery to back up the fact that they don't pay their taxes, their fair share.
Yeah, I think barnstorming PA is going to be one of those, but because we don't have a profit, we're going to not be paying taxes for a different reason.
Yeah, we're just an unsuccessful business.
Yeah, I think that's the way it works.
Support us on Patreon.
Yeah, support us on Patreon, which we're going to set up any minute now. I'm pretty sure that's the way it works, right? If you have negative income, you don't have to pay taxes, corporate taxes, like real negative income, not Delaware loophole. Okay. We should start a private series. How can I make the Delaware loophole work for me?
I think you got to pay a lawyer like $1,000 an hour to get information.
Okay, I just have to say this real quick. It was like 1992 or something, and I was on a plane. And you remember that planes, sometimes they have those glossy magazines. It's like stories, and on the sidebar were ads, and clearly not pitched at me. And it was a business person. This was in the wake of NAFTA, right? First passing, and it was a businessman in a suit and tie, kind of rubbing his chin, looking thoughtful. And underneath it said, "Yes, you can. You could tan." Oh, sorry. The thought bubble is him going, "How can I get my labor costs down to less than $3 a day?" Something like that. And then underneath it said, "Yes, you can. You could tan. You could tan business council or whatever." And I was like, "Well, it's the quiet part out loud." Yeah, exactly.
Right back where we started there.
Right back where we started. Okay, who else has got a headline? I have one if somebody else doesn't have one.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think mine would be political party loses every race where they don't run candidates. That is a conversation that I have had so many times in the last week. It's really, really entertaining and horrifying at the same time, because
if my sound bleeds through, I don't know if I'm laughing or crying. Keep going.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. I've had so many people ask, well, why aren't there names on my ballot? It's like, well, because there's no one running. Well, somebody should run. Yes, that is correct. You are 100% right. Would you like me to tell you how maybe you could run, or you can try to recruit people who can run for office? And well, no, I can't do that. Okay, why? Well, I can't do this. I don't know anything about it. Neither do the other people running, probably, and the people who hold the current offices. Every single meeting I have been in, every time someone has stopped me and asked me like how to fill in their ballot, anything like that. Well, there were a bunch that were just blank. Is there something wrong with my ballot? I mean, yes.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
But it's not what you're thinking. So I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts on that. But it's like it breaks my heart and infuriates me at the same time. And it's just, I just want to pull all my hair out.
I mean,
sorry, Jordy. Little known fact about elected officials and candidates: they're regular people just like us. They don't have any special knowledge. There's no political science degrees, by the way, for someone who's worked in electoral politics for a number of years now, are practically useless in electoral politics. No offense to anyone who's listening or anyone on this podcast who has a political science degree. I apologize. No offense intended.
It is completely useless.
It does not pay my bills. So.
Right. There's nothing to tell us how to be. There's no special knowledge that we have to have in order to be a candidate. Just to care about your neighborhood and your area, and a knowledge of local issues.
Oh, nice cat. No, I love it. The cat eyeball. That was great.
I apologize for any Barnstormer listeners.
Listen, every good barn has a good mouse.
He's the barn cat. Yeah, that's true.
The barn cat.
My cat's an asshole. So anyway, just apologies as usual for Sammy joining the pod uninvited and being a dick.
Oh, Nick's got one too.
I think the word for all the kitties. I think the word in Egyptian for asshole is kot.
That sounds right.
Yeah. As a local elected official, I will promise you that it takes no special qualification. We need people, and honestly, we need more people because. And if you're a local elected official, sorry, this isn't about everybody, but there's an awful lot of them who get into it because they just really like to enforce petty rules, and that's kind of the least important thing. And people with vision and compassion and energy matters more.
And I'll say, Jordy has it on his schedule to release this on Wednesday. Just holding him accountable for that. And you, listener, have time to run for office on the primary. It's super easy. All you have to do is get for most of these offices, just stand out in front of the polling place for I don't know, an hour and get 10 people to write you in.
My 20-year-old son Elijah is running a write-in against me.
Really? You're not running.
He's just a good point. Well, not against me. He's writing himself in for borough council.
Oh,
you're right.
You should get other people to do it. I was trying to get
He's going to beat you, Jordy, if you're not standing at the polls. You know that, right?
Seriously.
Yeah. Well, I said it stupidly. I'm not on the ballot. It's the other position. But anyway, he would be.
He's running a write-in.
We'll
help you with your campaign. Let's put some slogans. We'll stand outside and we'll compete with them. Let's do it.
Please don't. There's another person.
Election day and heading to Lewisburg.
There's another person running a write-in to get on the ballot, and she actually lives here year-round, so she would be better.
I'm for those listening. I am trying to write. If you live in Union County and you're a Democrat, write in Sarah Jane Snyder for sheriff. I'm trying to run a small write-in campaign. Although I think you need 100 signatures to get on the ballot, so I think it's unlikely. But I'm going to do it.
I occasionally
don't tell Sarah Jane.
I'll occasionally write in certain people for coroner. I think that's great. I do that quite often. And then people are like, "Why am I being nominated for coroner?" Right? Yeah, I'll do that.
Constable's another good one to write people in on.
It's
all about constable. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So constables, when I think about criminal justice transformation, I think that there's a big opportunity in the constable races. They're not quite police. They're under the direction of the court, but they are the folks who know when someone's got a warrant out for their arrest for failure to pay fines or failure to pay child support or any of those things that can be a product of poverty and some of the systemic trauma that really causes our criminal justice system to be the way it is these days. And so we need more people for constable. In fact, most constables are write-ins. Most constables in the state are write-ins, and it's 6-year terms. So
they also, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure they also are supposed to be at polling places on election day to make sure everything's working smoothly. but that's a bad loophole for the other side. Like there's a guy in Union County who, you know, dresses up in his militia gang outfit with guns because he's worried about, you know, bamboo laced ballots from Antifa stand. I just made that up and that was really fucking funny.
No, but I think it's important because you really like that's a position, because I agree, Nick, like there's so much opportunity for good there. There's also so much opportunity for abuse. And I know Bloomsburg as a college town, you know, we have seen some really problematic constables who have been very predatory towards young women, and it's just been a real problem. So we need good people in every position, and I think that's the important part.
So I think is it just Taylor and me on headlines?
Yeah, I'm going to do mine and then you can do yours, because I think you're going to do yours about the amendments and then that'll lead into a longer conversation. Oh, you're not going to do yours about the amendments?
No, was I supposed to? Did I get homework?
No. Okay. Well, I still want to go first. Mine is Liz Cheney canceled. Yeah. So if you haven't heard, this just happened. She got booted from Republican leadership because the majority of the Republican council felt like, or Congress felt like that supporting Donald Trump was the most important thing to be a Republican official, and that is their barometer for what it takes to be in Republican leadership. And you have to buy into the lie to do that, and it's really sad. And I really dislike Liz Cheney, but I also, at the same time, admire her for sticking to her principles. And I wish that more Republicans, even Republicans that voted to impeach him, are not really standing up for her. And it's a sad state of affairs. I just feel like for the first time really since in a couple of weeks, I'm like, oh my God, our democracy is completely crumbling, and one party is just, you know, completely going off the rails here in a very unhealthy way. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of broke hearing that news kind of broke the illusion I had constructed for myself that everything was fine. So yeah,
can we just say something about Taylor's very quick edit where he was going to say for the first time in, and then he realized it really wasn't very long. It wasn't
that long, yeah.
It was like a few weeks.
Well, I was like since the election, I was like, well, J6, and I was like, oh, and then some other stuff too.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I'm not enough of a presidential historian, you know, to have a good feel for this, but in my lifetime, in my memory, former presidents almost never have this much control.
This is how I feel.
I mean, JJ Abbott, who I think works for Commonwealth Communications, is that right, Dwayne? He's really good on Twitter. You know, he has this like, if you had told me 4 years ago that Pat Toomey and Liz Cheney were not sufficiently like we're not welcome in the Republican Party, I would never believe you. And I keep rereading that because, like, right now, what Taylor said is completely unsurprising. But then at the same time, and it feels very like glacial, right? Like just frozen in. This is the way things are. And then I have to just remind myself that, you know, things in political dynamics do shift over periods of time. So it's I mean, there's just words escape us. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Doesn't she have like an over 95% like voting thing with like Trump?
Yes.
Like I'm, you know, I'm kind of really torn because in one respect, like, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, right? Like, we don't have people like that in our, you know, when we say that she's being true to her like morals, I'm like, where the fuck was she like for the last 4 years? Because, you know, all of a sudden she found morality. Like, what happened there? You know, like, I don't know.
It's an awful lot like the rats leaving the burning ship saying, I warned you about the gasoline. It's like, well, you're a little late, you know. Look, I'm on fire with the metaphors today.
It's like, don't cross the line. Don't you cross this line that was five miles back.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's opportunistic, really, because of January 6th, right?
Gave them all an excuse to, now we agree. This was very bad. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all the bad things, right?
I mean, there was an
It
announcement.
didn't happen on its own.
We only get it in this very narrow circumstance, and yet we're still going to ignore all the broader implications of everything else that we've been supporting.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I will say that I have a big enough heart that even though I completely am opposed to every political stance she's probably ever taken on anything except for this one thing, at some level, right, to have nowhere to go home, because I'm sure I don't want to run as a Democrat. Like I can, there's some sort of human drama there that I can empathize with a little bit, but in no way is she like a hero for me.
Early on, she was, when Trump was first running, she was opposing the things that he said, when things would come out of his mouth, she would just be like, oh yeah, that's not right. With the Hollywood tape being released, she was against that. But then when the votes came in for her district, right, the one that voted for Obama twice and overwhelmingly just voted in Trump, all of a sudden she found Trump religion, and was on board with him all the way along. If you want to know what motivates Liz Cheney, it's getting reelected.
Mm-hmm. And so there was a little bit of news like last night or this morning that 100 Republicans are talking about a splinter party. And I was like, what's your voting constituency? Right? I mean, good luck, but
they should pop that, right, Dwayne?
Yeah.
They 100.
What is the purpose?
It's like 100 Cato, Brookings, and Hoover Institute fellows are forming a party with 3 MSNBC commentators.
100,
yeah.
Right?
They've been making mutters about this since the election.
Well, they won't even release their names. It's like one guy says, I have 100 people in my corner, and it's like,
But I think you just hit the nail on the head, and y'all don't want to get me started on cable news, but you can find their names on MSNBC and CNN. It's very easy to figure out who they are.
All right, here's my headline. I had one I actually looked up because Dwayne is always giving me a hard time. Supposedly 6 words is the ideal headline length. I feel that rules don't apply to me, so mine are always longer, but I'm going against brand. I have it's sort of a 1-word headline. It's a hashtag. Hashtag Unite the Dakotas. Because since the DC statehood isn't going anywhere and we have such a counter-majoritarian system, the Dakotas themselves, there's no reason for there to be a North and a South Dakota. And so
you're gonna get so much hate. You're gonna get so much hate, but go ahead. That's cool.
What did you say? I didn't hear that because
you don't mess with your states like that, man.
Oh yeah, totally. Unite the Dakotas. I also want to do Wyoming, Montana, united. But that one's harder to explain. But that's my headline.
It's a better name. I think that's the problem with that.
That is the problem. Yeah. These places are beautiful places. I love the people, but they do not need, I can't remember the numbers. 60% of senators represent 24% of the population. It's so out of whack. Don't talk to me about the stupid fucking founders. They were idiots anyway. The whole 3/5 rule. They were not geniuses. And all of these states were drawn. I mean, it's like I've said this before, we're still in the last unwritten chapter of Reconstruction. The Dakotas were there, well, in a good way to bolster the Free State Coalition, but this is bonkers. Land, who cares if, the votes in North Dakota should not be counting more than the votes in New York City or, Miami or Houston or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm just going to elevate this site
for that matter, right?
Yeah.
I said Houston, yeah.
I could go on a rant about the founders and the Constitution and the fact that the Constitution is supposed to be a living document. It's supposed to be changing. Look, the Constitution was written. I was not a person. My parents were not allowed to get my mix. My mother is white. My parents were not allowed to get married. Miscegenation was something that was explicitly denied to folks,
until the 70s.
Until the 70s, loving, West Virginia.
The 1970s.
Yeah.
Right. Good to point that out.
When my parents were born, they were not allowed to get together and create me. All right, let's just put that in the context here, right? And when my parents were born, they were not allowed to get together and create me. And that's what the founders created. And so anyone who wants to talk about the founders as if they were some kind of gods, I mean, look, they did not create an even system. The Constitution is designed to be changed, reasonably speaking. And I think along that line, so is our representation. in Congress, and it's very uneven and unequal right now. That needs to be fixed.
I'd just like to push back on that and say that as a woman, like, women were always recognized by the Constitution and the founders. So I think they were pretty great and perfect and everything was excellent. And I don't think the Constitution needed to be changed at all, which is why they immediately wrote amendments, right? Like, the process started right away. Fix it. It's long overdue. This country looks a little different than it did back then.
So see, the Constitution is a dog and it goes through a hole in the fence. No.
Here we go again.
No,
Trying.
The dog is wearing a wedding dress, Jordy. What is
exactly.
the metaphor?
Yeah, he's from
And it
North
has
Dakota or
lipstick on it,
something.
and the lipstick is.
Okay, what's next? Amendments?
Yeah, why don't we talk about the amendments, and we could just go through them one at a time, all four.
Okay, I should say I was on a call. This was so sweet, but like, what was it? It was Lycoming County Progressives, and they had invited somebody from the League of Women Voters who was not very comfortable on Zoom, and she was like there to sort of be an expert on the amendments, or to be kind of the referee, right? Like, I'm going to just sort of present them. And so she comes on and she says, "Well, should I read the text of the amendments?" And I was like, "No, please don't." Like, that's not necessary.
Well, I mean,
because it's boring.
It is boring. I mean, the first two are basically about limiting executive power in the face of an emergency. Isn't that right? Or is that just
totally correct?
Yeah. And for some reason, I don't know, I guess I don't exactly understand why it takes two of them to do that. Does anybody get that?
It's a good question that I don't know the answer to. I don't know if any of you do either, but I don't.
I don't know the answer.
What was that?
Why are there two separate ones instead of one?
For the first two?
Yeah, like if you just want to limit the governor's power, why do you need two amendments?
Huh. It's probably up to some kind of, like, if you think about, because they are two different things, right?
Yeah.
One's about the length of time and the other one's about, it's certainly not because they don't want to confuse the voter, right? That's not the reason.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely
I know it's not that, because it's not that, but it's probably
so
because
why would you even suggest that, Dwayne?
probably a constitutional scholar would say that they would need to be two different things because of how they're addressing two different things.
One is terminating it, and the second one is just about declarations and management. So I don't know. I just read that off the State Department's website.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think I got it. Nick, are you going to save us here?
I don't know what it's called. So that's why I'm hesitating. I think it's because you can't write laws in Pennsylvania that have to do with multiple things at once. You have to like separate them out. And so there's a term for it. I wish I could remember. What were we going to say, Jordy?
The one has to do with the length of time. So currently, the governor can declare an emergency, and I believe it's 90 days that it exists without challenge from the legislature, and they're moving that to 21. So it goes from 90. So basically, if there's a flood, the governor now can be like, state of emergency. I can invoke these emergency powers, which we all agree real circumstances provoke the need for that. And this cuts it from 90 to 21. And at that 21, then he has to basically keep reissuing them and getting like more approval from the legislature. The other one has to do with whether he can override challenges, right? So basically he can keep vetoing the legislature, saying we are ending your state of emergency, and he can just keep vetoing that. So and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has already ruled on this last year. I mean, some people, good government types, and I'm saying that with both love and a little bit of annoyance, are like, well, checks and balances. I'm like, yeah, but they're there. We have courts for a reason. I mean, I think there is a space to say how much executive power is too much. What are the checks and balances? But there's no good faith here. There's no good faith here.
So are we voting? Are we voting yes or no?
We're all voting no.
Okay.
No on the two constitutional amendments.
No.
Okay.
Hard no.
Hard no.
And on 1 and 2, vote no.
Yes.
It's worth noting that this is the second time, or this is not the second time ever, but this is just another effort by the Pennsylvania legislature, the General Assembly, to get rid of checks and balances. First, they're trying to get rid of checks and balances with the executive branch with these constitutional amendments. And then, just kind of a shout out to the bill that's been tabled. They're trying to do the judicial gerrymandering, which would get rid of checks and balances to the judicial branch. So really trying to overreach their power here.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to say more about this or go on to number 3.
Let's talk about number 3, sorry, and then talk about the campaign for them. Go ahead, Jess.
Can I just say that I think it's important, though, that we really highlight the no's, like why were they framed the way that they were? Why were they posed the way that they were? Because people vote yes. It's the first thing you can select. It's all those things. And it's like really, really important that we are shouting that out. People are going to vote yes. And that's the thing, like it's written that way for a reason, and we all need to be like yelling that from the rooftops.
I didn't know that, and I find that fascinating, and maybe even ties into the earlier thing. Why do people vote yes on amendments so much in Pennsylvania? I mean, maybe it goes to what Nick was saying, which was like, we just assume, well, probably somebody fucked up, so we better fix it.
Because they make it sound good. That's why they frame it to make it sound good, and so that they can run campaigns, like this, that say vote yes on everything, right? So they word everything to make it sound yes. And if we believe that that's not going to happen in the fall regarding like the judicial gerrymandering that they want to do, it's going to be a yes on the campaign. So we better be prepared to do a bunch of these mailers that say no on those things and get them out. I got 4 of them. This is great. How the Commonwealth Foundation is targeting Democrats with this campaign about somehow by limiting the governor's power and the power grab by Republicans to try and just handicap our governor is somehow protecting our families is absurd. And it's all about who is controlling things and who has power in our legislature, because they can't win a statewide. They have real challenges winning statewide elections. Unlike the legislature, and it gets back into the size of our counties and how we select and how our individual, it's once again, we are filled with North and South Dakotas in Pennsylvania. It's all in the central part of the state, right? Yeah. And that's the challenge right there. It's, we might as well be called the state of the Senate, right?
Oof.
But
oof.
Yeah. I was listening to a very interesting podcast with about Michael Lewis's new book on the Ezra Klein Show, and he was talking about what our next pandemic response is going to look like, because it's going to happen sooner than you think. And while this pandemic is sort of winding down a little bit here since everybody's getting vaccinated, fingers crossed, we got to think about the next pandemic too. And this. If this passed, that would make that would very much strain the ability of our government to respond. So I don't know.
There will be a next pandemic.
There will.
I don't think this one's not going anywhere. That we are all relying on herd immunity, and that is not possible in the United States. Let me repeat that. Herd immunity is not possible in the United States, and it's certainly not going to be possible in a way that we're going to feel it in central Pennsylvania, right? Because that relies on people actually getting vaccinated. And we only have 1/3 of our population that's fully vaccinated right now. So it's not going to happen because virus can still circulate. I don't want to go down that. We're talking about the election, but this is a big wake-up call. Herd immunity is not going anywhere.
But it's all connected, we are talking about the election, but this is part of it. Yeah. This is why those questions are on the ballot.
And, I feel like, we're sort of accustomed to disasters that are a flood and a wildfire and a tornado, where it comes, it wreaks havoc, it goes. Of course, a pandemic is a disease, wreaks havoc also, but it is slower moving and longer. And so, the tools that we have, maybe they need to be adjusted. But again, there's no good faith about this. I mean, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are the 3 states where the GOP state legislatures are going after executive powers. And those are all Democratic governors and Republican legislatures. I think that says a lot about it. We should say something about the Third Amendment, which is adds basically that it adds to the Constitution that race cannot be the basis, that no one can be discriminated against based on race, which I have yet to see some good investigative journalism that explains why the same people authored all 3 of these and put them together. And I may say something here that bothers or annoys or offends people or whatever. And that, I'm just going to say that to me, this was a total red herring. You've got half of the right confused about it, half of the left confused about it. It was just there as like a honeypot to get people to go, yes, 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 that like Democrats and liberals would be like, oh, that sounds good. There are people, and I'm not a lawyer, of course, but there are people who are worried that if you do this, basically it means that it's in the Constitution and it's not just, for example, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, which extends non-discrimination protection already based on race, gender, age, ethnicity, religion, ability, all those important categories, not sexual identity or gender orientation. That is already a law. So this takes one category, race, and puts it in the Constitution. The idea that somehow it's going to like open the floodgates for either eroding protections or not, the federal laws, federal Constitution, other things, there's just so much there. It just seems to me like this is, if it passes or it doesn't, it's not really going to change the state of the law and policies about non-discrimination. And so, like, this is my heterodoxy. I don't think it matters how you vote on it a lot, to be honest. Vote no on the first two and whatever you want on the third one.
Oh, no, yes. I mean, but you're right, Jordy. Here's the thing: it's like even with when that constitutional amendment passes, and if it passes, in order to prove that it's been violated, you'd have to prove intent, which is the problem with those kinds of laws now. So I completely agree with you. It is a red herring. You should vote yes on it, but it is a red herring, and it is designed, I think, to get us to vote yes on all of them. Yes, yes, yes. We want to do no, yes on the Third Amendment as far as I'm concerned.
If I vote yes, racism will end tomorrow. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what they're trying to tell you.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be all about
and the unicorn's coming the next day from Amazon.
Yeah.
The reason that it's there, my firm belief is because of this. Mm-hmm. It's the Vote Yes PA campaign being done by the Commonwealth Foundation. So they can just thumb it down and say yes to everything. And this is the first time I've seen them doing mailings with African-American women on it, with an Asian father and son, with a Latino wearing masks, like they're promoting wearing masks. Are you kidding me? And they're sending this to Democrats as kind of stuff like all of a sudden they're the party that cares about this shit. You've got to be kidding me. Like, that's why, so that they can run a campaign that's called Vote Yes PA. That's the reason why it's there.
Yep. And it's also a trial run, I think. A trial run for governor's race. And the judicial race. Yeah, because here's the thing, what people may not realize is the Republicans actually put the first person of color in the row houses in Pennsylvania. The Auditor General is a person of color for the first time in Pennsylvania, and the Attorney General has never been, and so on and so forth. And so I would not be surprised to see them run on over the next couple of years candidates who are more people of color, who are more women, and especially for larger races like the governor's race, which is coming up.
So the fourth one is about whether professional firefighting companies can also secure, I think, DCD grants.
Volunteer fire companies, isn't it?
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, it is volunteer fire companies, volunteer ambulance services, and volunteer rescue squads is the wording on it.
Can secure the same grants that professional companies can get.
Can go into debt basically to buy the equipment that they need, right?
I think there's a real missed opportunity in this Vote Yes campaign with some really hunky firemen with Vote Yes.
How many volunteer firemen have you seen?
They don't have to be actual firemen. And I'm just saying,
okay.
This is just, this one's on the
My
house.
husband's a firefighter, so.
Oops.
Got one in there.
I mean, usually, no offense
Jordy.
to them,
pulling out that firefighter in the other room out of her back.
But usually the hunks are the hunks of meat on the barbecue grill, not in the firefighter.
That's hot.
Tell me about it.
We'll edit this out. Just kidding. We'll keep it in.
But I just want to clarify, and maybe I'm confused about this. I think the volunteer fire companies can already apply for this program, and it's now potentially allowing paid companies to
That's what I thought.
Loans. Am I wrong about this? Have I been lying to everyone?
I just put it in the chat, like, to expand the indebtedness for volunteer fire companies, volunteer ambulance companies, and volunteer rescue squads.
No, that provides services through paid personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just
okay.
Yeah. It's to allow paid. To allow paid firefighters
Yes.
to access the same type of loans that
Okay, yeah.
that volunteer firefighters. can
Whether,
get.
to be clear, volunteer fire companies often have some paid people. That does not change their legal status as volunteer fire companies. So whether a volunteer fire company has some paid staff or not is immaterial. It's this whole category of fire and rescue entities that are common in
Right.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
They now can go for example, a difference would be in a city that has a municipally owned or controlled fire department, like in Lewisburg and in many places. Well, Lewisburg is a little different because we have, but a lot of places like maybe Jess, where Mr. Jess is a volunteer fireman, the chief or other people may be paid. The point is they now can go for these after this program, which, as I understand it, has money in it. So we have money that's needed for fire and rescue equipment. We have departments that need it, and because of weird things in Pennsylvania where they're organized as these volunteer entities, they've not been permitted to access those loan monies. Does that help? Is that clear?
I think it's about the loans and the indebtedness, right?
Right,
That
yeah.
they're able
Yes.
to take that on. Yeah, that
So it's-
they don't have to balance their budget with it. So here's the other side of the coin then. How are they going to pay for it if they run into problems? That's the part of it, right?
Well,
Fair loans.
nonprofits, hospitals, universities, hospitals, Dwayne, take loans all the time.
Oh, let's not talk about, they don't need to take loans in nonprofit hospitals. They
But
have billions with a
my-
B. But anyway,
Yeah, my point is, like, because this is a public loan fund, is there some downside risk that some of these volunteer fire companies won't be able to pay it back? Yes. Is that downside risk for any government loan program? Yes.
Yeah.
Is the
Okay.
money there and is it needed? Yes. Should you vote yes for it? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's no, yes, yes. Can we move on?
Yes. No,
Okay.
yes, yes. Can we make a cha-cha?
No, yes, yes.
Oh, no, yes, yes.
Yes.
All right. So I want us to watch this. Sean Parnell, he announced he's running for Senate from Western PA, a Republican. I want us to watch this video, and then both Jess and I are sort of on a time crunch, so we just got to do watch it, do the hot take, then do our closing.
So we're gonna put the sound in later, right? So we'll
We'll
go
put the
watch it
sound in
now.
later. We'll just go watch it separately. And all right. Break.
It was a warm and cloudy morning when the fate of America rested upon the rolling hills of central Pennsylvania. Today, an American flag stands watch over a humble grave whose marker reads on one side Burns and on the other side, Patriot. John Burns served in many battles during the War of 1812. He was too old to enlist, but at Gettysburg, John Burns limped out his front door and joined the fight. Wounded 3 times by rebel fire, he finally collapsed on the battlefield. A civilian warrior, John Burns embodies the spirit of Pennsylvanians. When our freedom is at stake, Pennsylvanians are the first to the fight. That's exactly why I joined the Army after 9/11. I led an infantry platoon on the front lines in Afghanistan. They called us the Outlaw Platoon, men of every race, creed, and religion. The media tries to divide America by those differences. Liberals think they define us. But in battle, with those men of Outlaw Platoon, we found truth is something greater. Our differences were only skin deep. And what we had in common, our love and brotherhood, it made us unstoppable. When Americans are united in purpose, we can accomplish anything. I've been all around the world. I learned the hard way that freedom is precious and rare, and we have to fight for it. Today, the fight for freedom is not on a battlefield overseas. Now the fight to preserve the fundamental things that make us Americans will be won or lost here at home. You and I face a generational crisis. Will we cherish our freedoms? Or will we submit to a government that tells us how to live, what to drive, who to worship, and what to think? Freedom of speech, they're strangling it. Our gun rights, they don't accept them. Police, they say defund them. Free enterprise, they say it doesn't work. We've always had crazy liberals in our politics, but this time they have powerful allies. They've bullied large corporations into doing their dirty work. Either we rise to the defense of our founding freedoms, or we'll be silenced and made defenseless. I'm asking you to join me in that fight. I grew up middle class, the son of a modest, faithful people. We lived paycheck to paycheck. My grandpap was a lifelong Union Democrat, old school Western PA through and through. My family got ahead with hard work and strong love. And I bet yours did too. Now I'm raising 3 kids, trying to give them the great nation our parents gave us. America calls Pennsylvania the Keystone State, the foundation and the future of our great republic. Our nation was built by the sweat of Pennsylvania coal miners, shipyard workers and steel workers, farmers, merchants, and soldiers. It's up to us to rise to the moment once again. The U.S. Senate is evenly divided. Senate control depends on us. Some say uniting America is impossible. I reject that. I believe there's still a rock-solid core of this country, and it can be saved. I'm Sean Parnell, and I'm running for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. If you believe the greatness of America is worth fighting for, then join this movement. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. If you want to help our country, then sign up for Parnell's platoon. Together, we'll be the generation that saves the American experiment.
Yikes.
That's something.
Who wants to go first, or should we just do it together?
Well,
I don't want to go at all.
You don't want to go at all. I mean, I thought, yeah, I could see joining that platoon. I'd like to be in a band of brothers where race and creed, like, you know, we come together and we fight for a common cause. But I was a little confused. If I join his platoon, I'm going to go to Afghanistan and fight Sanders. I was a little confused about who the enemy.
Yeah.
Who is the enemy?
Well, I think that's really interesting because it's just like, for so long, the boogeyman for conservatives it was the Soviet Union, then it was radical Islam, and now it's us. You know, like that is scary.
Crazy liberals and large corporations. That's such a weird mix. That's like saying it's the oil and the vinegar.
Yeah,
right?
Bernie
like
Sanders and the Wall Street executives are going to take
Nick,
over.
You're on the board.
They've combined.
You're on the board of JP Morgan, Nick, right? And Jess, you're on the board of Avon, and Dwayne, you're on the board of Community Health Services and Community Health Systems. In
How did I get Avon out of that?
I found it
because I'm still a sexist.
I'm never doing this podcast.
Because I'm a sexist.
I found it interesting that he highlighted liberals as the enemy in one sentence, but then called up Democrats to join him. So he's separating liberals and Democrats in that. There's also no black people in that ad. It was a really long ad, 3.5 minutes is a really long time to get anyone's attention. But this is also the guy, and I put it in the chat, but I'll share it here. He also was quoted when he was running before saying the idea that a woman doesn't need a man to be successful, the idea that a woman doesn't need a man to have a baby, the idea that a woman can have a thing live, the idea that a woman can live a happy and fulfilling life without a man is all nonsense, according to this guy. And yet he wants us.
I'm not a fan.
No. And also, you know, I'm a military veteran. I took offense. I took umbrage at.
I didn't know that.
I'm a military veteran. My parents were both military veterans. My mother was a POW in Desert Storm. And so I took umbrage at him using our heritage for his, hate-filled message. And honestly, he talked about how we are the ones dividing folks and then proceeded to divide people into categories. And so it's a lot of that double speak. The messaging is frighteningly good though.
It's frighteningly good.
The faithful people, the hardworking people, like these are all dog whistles for racism, sexist, like all of that stuff.
If I had a headline, I would say, this is who we warned you about. Just a really slick sepia-toned version of Donald Trump. All he's got is grievances, no policy, just wants to divide us.
Well, yeah, for sure. I also, I'm quibbling, but I'm pretty sure we call ourselves the Keystone State. I don't think America calls us the Keystone State.
Yeah.
We call ourselves that.
Yeah.
Like the only.
You also talked about what we're doing too, like these crazy liberals who are trying to take away our
speech,
take away our speech, take away, defund the police, take away our guns, and
tell you what to think.
Yeah. He's feeding his narrative of what crazy liberals.
It was a very good narrative. It talked about the values. It talked about the enemy, and it talked about the enemy is us. And it flashed, AOC and Bernie and all of these people. And then it told you
Elizabeth
why,
Warren.
because and Elizabeth Warren. And then it told you why, because they're in cahoots with the Wall Street firms. And then it was a call to action. Join my platoon. It was very good.
I just real quick, I just want to point out this thing, and I've recently sort of discovered Substack as this place where all this really good content is. But I think it's Judd Legum had a piece about this meeting of course, no one should be surprised that there is a National Council of Business PACs, right? So these are the people in Washington who have a Tony address at 8th Street or whatever the fuck it is. And so this was like because the ruling class makes mistakes sometimes, they left the video on Zoom of this conference. And it was all about how, so again, these are people who run business PACs. And the conversation was, I didn't like January 6th. And I didn't like the people who voted to overturn the election results, like Fred Keller, like who the other ones? JT Thompson. But is it time to start taking money and to start giving money? Like, can we go there yet? Right. And so just to point out this unbelievable lie that the big corporations, I mean, what they're responding to is market forces, right? When NBC canceled the Golden Globes, it's because a lot of their audience are more diverse. So it's so funny to me that they ascribe raw business marketing concerns to a socialist agenda. You know, NBC didn't consult with us about whether or not they should not do the Golden Globes. It was purely a business decision.
And really, he's calling out to a minority. The fact is that people who think like him, who think like that in the United States, are a minority. I used to not know if that was the case, but I got to tell you, working with wonderful people like you and around the country and around the state, it's clear to me that folks who believe this divide, or who agree with him, are in the minority, which is why these business decisions are having to be made, because the vast majority of their constituency believe it. Dwayne.
So at the very end, he talks about, I don't care if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're blah, if you're blah, if you're blah, right? We invite you to join us because that's how we're going to be unified in purpose. And the purpose is to defeat the crazy liberals and corporations who are taking away our freedom of blah, 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 blah. Like, that's the arc of the whole thing. So it's not like, hey, I'm not really going to unify. Only if you sign on the dotted line with the devil here in blood, like Liz Cheney was refusing to do, right? Only if you sign on, then we can have unity, because we're going to purge ourselves of the rest of you, right?
Well, and again, I am the way forward. You know, it's like, even though he's trying to get people to join his platoon, it's because he's the one who can lead it, and that is just so problematic.
I'm the way forward by going backwards, right?
Exactly.
I'm the way forward by progressing and keeping the past being the way it was.
Yep. Something that we've done, we did this with Fetterman, we did this with Malcolm Kenyatta, and we did this with Jeff Bartos. We gave it a grade. Do you guys want to?
I mean, purely as political advertising. Like, an A. I
think it's an A too.
Yeah.
I'm going to
pretty slick video.
Grade a little bit because it's too long.
It is way too long.
Well,
But I do see what they can do. They can take that and they can chop it into bite-sized pieces, right? That's what it looked like. So I'll give it a B+.
Dwayne? I think Dwayne rejects grading.
Yeah, thank you, Jordy.
It's one of the Heislerisms.
Oh, there we go. I'm not sure how to give it a grade. I'm not really sure. I mean, I think if we look at like what it's doing, it's obviously tapping into the moment that we have right now, and that minority, Nick, that you speak to, it's tapping into that. So on that regard, I'd give it an A, no doubt about it. And the fact that we're rejecting it means that it's good messaging too, because if we agreed with it, then what is he saying, right? So that seems to work. And I think that parts of it are very repeatable because he's gotten this from everyone that's been repeating it to begin with. And so I think that that's there as well. And so I guess I just talked myself into giving him an A. Yeah.
We're going to have to hop, but here's one thing. I mean,
no, just.
Oh, sorry.
Y'all keep going. I have to go.
No, I have to go too.
And I'll miss you all terribly.
We all do. I don't know if this is good counter messaging or not, but I was just the beginning part with Gettysburg and just the ways in which that's playing with all of this mythology about Gettysburg. I would love to see, either from his last run or his current run, I would love to see a picture of his crowds and how many Confederate flags there are. Right. And just have that up against that, because you are saying that you are from the tradition of the Union in the North. Yet I think a lot of your supporters think that the freedom that they're fighting for is the freedoms that were the freedoms to oppress and exploit other people. And that's,
I thought it was weird that he called them rebels, and because they're Confederates, right? Is that?
the glorification.
Johnny Reb is what they were called for sure.
The glorification of
I
somehow
don't know
the
that much
Civil
about it.
War and the War of, is somehow a positive thing. Like that's what they're reflecting back on the pride that he has with the way those wars were. Like just the glorification of that, because that's good messaging is when you can give an example of how it's worked in the past too. But the example he's using is how we were tearing our soul out as a country. And he sees that as a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
I've got to go, y'all. But
Yeah, no.
as always, I'm glad that we left it on that note. I feel sick to my stomach.
Sorry, no. What we're
Have
going to
a
do
good
is come up with
Thanks.
the counter message.
Yeah. While after I go figure out the counter message, somebody's texting me. Okay. Thanks, y'all. See you later.
We can all agree that we want a country that's not at war.
You can't take these twists and turns, man.
Yeah,
I don't blame
right.
you.
That's the counter message. Like most Americans,
I've traveled every
they're
road
sick
in
of the war.
Pennsylvania.
That is-
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man.
here's
I've
what I
crossed
want, Michael.
valleys fair, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Millview, Rockview, Waterloo, Lackawanna, Fairview, Bellevue, Sweet Root, Susquehanna, Lewisburg, Stroudsburg, Ellensburg, Orbisonia, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Wellersburg, Robsonia, Mountaintop, Glen Rock, Flat Rock, Sunbury, St. Mary, Chick, Shanny, Big Shanny, I'm a dandy. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I crossed the valleys fair, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. I've been to Belfont, Southmont, Westmont, Mumblesdorf, Nordmont, Dormont, Lebanon, Hummels Wharf, Cedar Springs, Bowling Springs, Chest Springs, Centerbridge, Centersport, Leesport, Williamsport, Brackenridge, Lumber City, Central City, Lake City, Clearfield, Westfield, Winfield, Richfield, big deal. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I crossed the valleys fair, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Woo! Beachland, Wilpen, Tunnelton, Conestoga, Bakerton, Curry Run, Smoke Run, Sanatoga, Slickville, Smithville, Flicksville, Maxtony, Youngwood, Edgewood, Hopwood, Punxsutawney, Whitehall, Blue Ball, Center Hall, North Apollo, Delano, Renovo, Laredo, let's go. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I crossed the valleys fair, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Stuff Creek, Penns Creek, Pine Creek, Chambersburg, Middle Creek, Blakesley, Falls Creek, Shippensburg, Johnstown, Allentown, Shepherdstown, Lords Valley, Daisytown, Doylestown, Downingtown, Cherry Valley, Plain Grove, Mill Grove, Mechanics Road, Swissvale, Ferndale, Carbondale, Monongahela. Oh well, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I